Professor Wolff, thanks for joining me today. We use the word vulgarity a lot, you and I, in these segments when you come on, probably because we're often talking about capitalism, but it seems specifically vulgar, this idea that, well, for example, in the COP26, Amazon founder Jeff Bezos said recently that his Bezos Earth Fund will spend $2 billion restoring landscapes and transforming the food system. And he said in the conference at Glasgow that he had, quote, grasped nature's fragility when he traveled into space, which he's been widely criticized for, spending all that money on space trips instead of solving the problems that he is complicit in creating in the first place. Talk about this and how it intersects with capitalism.
Well, you know, it's a thin, and if I dare say so, vulgar effort to put lipstick on a pig. And to be blunt, Mr. Bezos has had hundreds of billions of dollars for years now, and he does not use that money for social good. You know, if you have that amount of money, you're accumulating just by keeping it in the bank billions more each year. That is money that could have and should have made a difference to our disastrous climate policies many years ago and for a long time. And he didn't do it. And he knew he wasn't doing it. And all the rest of us knew that billionaires like him are infinitely more concerned and interested in accumulating even more than they are in anything else. But every now and then they get caught out being the ugly billionaires they've always been. And then for a few hours, they throw another few million at a public relations firm,
right,
which dresses them up in a big public way to throw a lot of words at the world and hope that no one pays attention. Look, it is fundamentally obscene for a few individuals to have that much money. But then to come forward and say, we're the ones who will decide how, where, and when it will be spent. Wow. That shows you that we live in a culture in which people are allowed to grab that disproportionate amount of the world's wealth created by millions of people, not by them as individuals, and then imagine in their delusion that not only do they have all this money, but they can decide which social problems they will be interested in working on, to what extent, at what time they feel like.
Yeah,
that's not being a member of a community. That's being, and I'll be polite now and not say the word I would have chosen.
Well, isn't it? It's kind of almost like eye roll inducing that he is going to try to transform food systems. I mean, Amazon has purchased Whole Foods. Whole Foods is supposed to be the sort of crunchy, where you get the organic produce kind of place. So he's basically going to be putting more money into something that will make him more money. I mean, it's basically a battle of the corporate titans. And the fact that he said, you know, that his quote here is, in too many parts of the world, nature is already flipping from a carbon sink to a carbon source. Yeah, well, no shit. I think Al Gore told me that 25, 30 years ago, however long it was. And people had been saying that for years in advance of that. I mean, it's just like so disingenuous for him. I mean, it's not like he lives in that spacecraft. It's disingenuous for him to just be like, guess what? This is happening. Who knew?
Yeah, exactly. He arrogates to himself a wildly inflated, kind of megalomaniac role in society that no one elected him to, no one agreed he would be in this position. It flaunts every democratic notion that a community has input into how the resources its labor developed are to be used. Oh no. All the hundreds of thousands of Amazon employees working very hard, usually under terrible conditions, earning crappy wages, making this man rich. And now he says, you see, because I'm rich, because I've ripped off all these workers, look how well I've done it. Now I'm going to decide whether we restore nature or not. Wow. People like that ought to be kind of put in those special jackets and taken to that very nice home and to spend a few years watching the grass grow. I mean, what in the world is going, and that, to be honest, we live in a society that celebrates this in large part. Significant numbers of our fellow citizens believe somehow that not all the labor of all those unpaid people made this man rich, but something peculiar about him.
God loved him the most.
Gives him, he's the second richest person. I used to say he's the richest. Let's be real clear to ourselves. This is a delivery boy. Amazon is a delivery service. We live in a society that can't think to make wealthy the people who have the greatest athletic skill, the people who have the greatest artistic contribution to make, the people who do the greatest scientific breakthroughs on how to solve diseases, make people happier. And no. They live modestly. But the delivery service, oh boy, that we want to make unbelievable. And let me give you another example, because even worse now. We have Elon Musk. By the way, I am grateful to Jeffrey Bezos and Elon Musk because of one thing they really contribute. They provide us in their person, in their behavior, with another stunning piece of evidence that to be rich has nothing to do with being smart, and that you don't need smarts to be rich. Look at them. So Elon Musk, amazing. He added to his wealth about $35 billion last week. Last week. And how did he do that? Did he invent something new? No. Did he do some stunning piece of work? No. Did he achieve a particular breakthrough in some important area of life? No. Here's what he did. He signed, actually he admitted afterwards that he hadn't signed it yet, which was another sign of a really smart dude here. But he said he had signed a contract with the Hertz Rent-A-Car Company, and that the Hertz Rent-A-Car Company, in this contract, he said he signed, but that he hadn't in fact, was committing to buying lots of Tesla automobiles rather than the other kinds of cars that it used to buy. This contract, which is very nice, no problem with, Hertz can buy whatever kind of car they're going to fob off on us for rental. But that another person who's already a billionaire got an additional $36 billion because of that contract being signed. That makes no sense on earth. That's not what we teach in economics. In economics, you're supposed to get income because of the contribution you make, the labor you do, the brains and the muscle you bring to the community, and the creation that he didn't create hardly anything. And he certainly didn't create anything last week. He was too busy speaking with his public relations agency on how to look like he gave a damn about poverty and was going to look into it. Holy mackerel. We ought to be examining a society that works like this and puts these cretins up there as some sort of model we should all admire.
Absolutely. And, you mentioned poverty, and then you mentioned the Bezos workers. And as you did that, I started to have these thoughts about, people in poverty, they have it's almost like they don't have the resources to be sort of environmentally sustainable. The environmentally sustainable car is the Tesla. What is that? 30 grand at the base model or more? I don't know. I didn't even look into it when I was looking for a car. It's to buy organic produce. Sure, you can have your own backyard farm, but those, most people don't have a backyard. And, most people have 2 jobs and kids and don't have time to run a garden or a farm. And honestly, gardens aren't free. You have to buy the seeds, you have to buy the fertilizer, you have to do all this stuff, and it takes an investment in time. So it seems like being environmentally conscious is almost something for the wealthy to do to make themselves feel better about that vacation they took in an airplane halfway across the world recently. I don't know your thoughts about this kind of cycle of low pay and environmental degradation because you're unable to kind of afford the things that pass as being personally environmentally neutral, carbon neutral, or whatever you want to call it.
Sure, let's take Mr. Bezos, but I could take Mr. Musk or any of the other people snatching the world's wealth to hold on to for themselves, like an unruly toddler who gets into a sandbox where there are a lot of toys that all the families have contributed, but the little toddler, not having learned how to be social, grabs every little truck, every little doll, puts them all in a corner, and dares any other child to come near them. We recognize, I hope, that that child needs psychological help to overcome what is a personality disorder, or at least something that could become that if you don't intervene. But the problem is, when they get big and adult looking like, you make the mistake of imagining they aren't a toddler mentality anymore. And I want to appreciate Bezos and Musk for once again educating us that you can look like an adult, but you can think like a baby. Okay, let's take an example of either of them. If they gave a damn about poverty, they wouldn't have been paying large numbers of their employees poverty level wages for many, many years, especially in the case of Amazon. That was something he could have changed overnight. He's the boss. He could have said, I'm not going to treat anyone like this. I don't care that our politicians have left the minimum wage at $7.25 an hour, which is what it is and has been since 2009. I am not like that. But he didn't. He thinks he is the Messiah who's going to pay everybody $15 an hour. I want to remind you, if you're a single adult earning $15 an hour, you fall below the poverty line in the United States. He has raised them from extreme poor to just plain horrible poor. And for this, the billionaire wants what? Applause? No, not from me. You're not going to get that. You are what you are. And could you have in all of those Amazon warehouses, could you have taken the lead in making them environmentally friendly, better air, better water, maybe do something for the communities? No. He didn't do any of it. And you want to imagine that when this BS comes out of his mouth in front of the TV cameras, brought there by his PR agency, we're all supposed to say, he's turned over a new leaf. He's a different human being. Come on. Do you
think that people are aware of this? I mean, sometimes I spend so much time in our progressive / lefty bubble and an academic bubble as well that I'm not aware how much propaganda people are buying. Like, is this working on someone?
Well, it works, but I wouldn't think it's all that much about the buying of the propaganda. But we have a very complicated society that on many levels is adapted to this kind of a system. Many are the ministers, the teachers, the media personnel who contribute to all of this without even knowing it, without even intending it. But it's kind of the air we breathe. For example, look at the word entrepreneur. Mr. Bezos and Mr. Musk like us to believe they are entrepreneurs. They are people who started a business and look at their success. See, don't punish success. By the way, an argument made by Nancy Pelosi, by Chuck Schumer, and not just by the Republicans. As if they did it. As if there's ever been an entrepreneur who didn't make use at every point in his or her life of the contributions of their mother, their father, their minister, their teacher, their friends, their associates, their co-worker. Whatever it is I do is the fruit of an enormous effort made by people who weren't even aware of it that I took advantage of. And do I get some reward for taking advantage of it? Sure. But should all of them be poor and I be a billionaire? There's no logic there. That's not necessary. I would have done what I would have done for 1/50th of that amount of money. I'm not even driven all that much by money, and I don't think other people are. Much more important, the relationships you have, the feeling people around you give you that you're an important person in their lives, that you're worthwhile, that you're valued, that you may even be loved. And these are we all know that somewhere.
That's interesting.
We get lost in this crazy notion.
That's so interesting.
That this billionaire is somehow there because of him.
It plays directly into the sort of right-wing corporate fascist march, the talking points that are forwarding that march, because people see Bezos exactly as you painted him, wanting them to see him. He is also painted that way by the media. Even the reporting on what he said at the COP meeting is, he's giving this $2 billion. That certainly opens him up for, how does he have $2 billion, which is what we're talking about here. But it makes regular people like you and I, who would be better off with a shared prosperity, think, well, we don't want to cap billionaires. What if I become a billionaire? I don't want to be capped. And it plays right into that American exceptionalism thing. I think religion also plays a part in this idea of, like you said earlier in the show, that, there's some thought system behind him thinking he's the next coming, the coming of the financial Christ or whatever. There is sort of this religious idea of like, God must like him more because he is rich. Just like Trump said, the evangelicals prayed to see who should be their leader, and they picked Trump because he was picked. So that means God must have picked him. There's this idea of like God picking favorites, and it plays right into this narrative that marches us further into this fascist state we're coming upon.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get into religious disputes here on your station or cause you grief. But if God is the one in charge, then we have to ask about, I don't know, Hitler and Stalin and how did they get to be in charge of what they were in charge of and enable.
Well, we don't have to talk about that, but I'm just saying the evangelicals do believe this.
Yes.
They do.
Yeah. Well, look, there's a long history in religion of various ideas that go by the names like predestination and so on. These are ideas that if you're well off, well, that's because you're a better person, God loves you more, and
right.
All of that. That's a transparent effort of the people who are rich, who have always understood the fundamental injustice of their situation. They're the ones who invented the phrase when they saw a beggar on the street, there but for the grace of God go I. They kind of know it's random. And that frightens the death out of them because they glimpse, even for a moment, that it is random, that in any society, who gets to the top is mostly a function of happenstance and accident and luck at every step. That's so scary because if that's true, which I believe it is, then by what right are you arrogating to yourself a disproportionate amount of the wealth of the world? If Mr. Bezos offers $2 billion in Glasgow, let's be real clear. that means he isn't giving the rest of his wealth to this purpose. His wealth is currently estimated at $200 billion.
Well, I don't know what happened. We can come back to me, Phil. It's okay. Something must have gone amiss here. Well, it went on like that. That's what happened. But I think you get the point. And it was always a joy to talk to Professor Richard Wolff. I'll get the full interview for you and put it up on our YouTube page. So if you want to see the rest of it, but I think that was pretty much wrapping it up as it is. I really loved what he said about this idea of predestination. I disagreed at the end in the conversation because I don't think that the wealthy, believe that I think they really believe in that they're better, that they deserve it somehow, and that there's nothing like if they had the skill or whatever it is, the trait of compassion, empathy, which requires you being able to put yourself in someone else's position, which I don't believe they do, then perhaps I could believe that. But I don't think that they really think, oh, I'm scared that might be me. No, if they were scared that might be them, this is the point I made with Richard Wolff. If they were scared that might be them, they might try to support a social safety net just in case they ever find themselves down on their luck in that way.